Okay. Wait, that's a good idea.
That is a good
Let
idea,
me-
Lloyd. You might have to listen to Lloyd right now.
Let me try this.
Otherwise, you guys can still hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, I can't
Me out.
put
Audio warning.
something on while I'm on full screen. So
That's
actually, no, I can't do it. It's useful for year 11s as well because we're going to be talking about subject selection and stuff like that. So
It will be, yes.
yeah.
Even year 10s, to be honest. We get someone to like ban Butters. This guy's presence is disrupting my peace.
Okay, I think the audience member count is stabilizing around 30.
Probably. You guys let me know when you think it's
actually, yeah, I can clear this slide.
Sweet.
So we're ready?
I believe so.
Okay. This masterclass is going to be pretty chill. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to put in the chat and we'll get to you. So on the agenda today, we're going to be going through choosing subjects strategically, hidden insights into study tips / hacks, building experiences and networks, and university pathways. Specifically medicine, however, dentistry and medicine mostly overlap, so it should work. I'll present number 1 and 2, and then Polaris and Johan will present 3 and 4. So for the first slide, choosing subjects strategically. For this one specifically, we're just going to focus on subject selection. It makes quite a big difference, more than often people know, especially with teachers. Sometimes they try to sway your selection. In terms of scaling, you can see here for the someone who does biology, you can see it's highlighted here. If you do specialist physics, chemistry, methods, and English, they are some of the top scaling subjects at the moment, except for biology and English. If you do those subjects and you get a roughly 96 across the board, you'll be at a 98.95 ATAR. And if you look at biology, 96 to 92.1 is pretty crazy. 96 to 92.1 will make a big difference, especially if you're aiming for ATAR above 98. That's when it makes more pronounced. So I'll be wary of those of you doing biology. If you're currently doing biology in year 12, I'm not sure whether. What do you guys think? Do you think it's worth? You might as well have to commit to it, I guess. It's out of year 12. Not much you can do. You just
Yeah,
gotta hope
because
that.
English is a bit more subjective. At least biology is a
Mm.
bit easier to maximize marks. That was
Yeah,
my
that's
experience,
true.
at least.
That is true, actually. Then you can see here, if you switch out engineering for biology, look at that jump. Similar scores, pretty much exact same scores, 98.95 all the way to 99.75. That's an insane jump. Like if you have the opportunity to change subjects out of biology, it makes such a big difference. I mean, you can see here, even with lower marks, like 96, 99, 99, 99, and 100 in bio, you're still not beating a subject of biology swapped out to biology. So I'd assure you, if your teacher's saying choose subjects that you like, choose subjects that you enjoy, honestly, that's just complete rubbish. You should be able to get above a 90 in any of the subjects, any subject that you choose. A 90 is more than possible for anyone if you put in the work. So with biology tanking ATAR, would not recommend. Um, Especially even other courses, anything with a low, such as accounting, just focus on the highest scaling subjects. In terms of the highest scaling subjects, we can look at the QCAA scaling mechanics on the next slide. That pretty much goes through the key changes. So first, I'll show you the optimum subject selection for 2025. Usually, general English is the best, unless you genuinely enjoy literature. Personally, I think it's a waste of time. If you're confident in other subject areas, if not, you can do it. Mathematical methods, specialist mathematics, physics, chemistry, and then chemistry is quite good as well, and it helps you for prerequisites for med and health entry, med and dent entry anyway. One of the following would be like an extra one that you can do: engineering, economics, French or German. From what I've been told, Italian, Chinese, and Japanese is not very good, and I think I've seen that in 2025 scaling. So I would recommend engineering, economics, and German. I have heard French. I have heard French making quite a big difference in terms of your overall scores. I think Doris Way, if I'm not mistaken, I think she got the highest raw scores out of anyone in Queensland, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's
So
right.
in terms
She
of
got
that,
that's right because she got
yes,
700s.
700s. And I mean, you can even check on the ATAR calculator. French, it shouldn't change too much with the new syllabus. If your school, one thing that I want to emphasize, if your school does not even if only has 4 good subjects and your 5th subject that you have, for example, in some school, he only had Digitech available as his 5th. He didn't have anything else. So I think it's worth it personally to take a long distance education class for a language such as French. I think it's definitely worth it if your school doesn't offer it. So I definitely recommend that for those of you that don't have that option. And obviously, if you're aiming for an ATAR lower than 98, it's pretty possible anyways, so you shouldn't worry too much. 2025 syllabus updates. So there are quite a few key differences in terms of clarity in the new syllabus. I know for a fact the old syllabus, it was easier to get higher marks on IAs, And external assessment was a bit harder because the actual criteria or syllabus points were less clear. So sometimes examiners could throw in some random information that's extrapolated or like indirectly taken from the syllabus that no one would expect. I mean, I think it was 2023, they put in for chemistry some random thing that they expected people to know. They're much less likely, and it'll be harder for them to do that with the new syllabus. So you shouldn't have to worry too much. So in saying that, you should have a strong focus on trying to maintain your IAs. They're both quite well balanced, IA and EA now. It will be harder to achieve full marks on assignments. If we decide to do assignment classes later on, those will go through the new changes more specifically in terms of the criteria and how you can make sure that you're maintaining full marks. As I said, 50 out of 50 external assessment easier. Some of the results, I think most of you should know this, but just to clarify, your total IA weighting is dependent on each subject. External weighting completes the remainder. So for example, if you have specialist, they have 20% for the assignment, 15% exam, 15% exam, and then 50% external weighting. And one thing that I think a lot of people might need to remember is that if you get a 15 out of 15, and you're comparing someone with 100% 15 out of 15 and a 98% 15 out of 15, those are both equal in terms of QCAA's eyes. So I wouldn't worry unless you're aiming for subject award at your school. I wouldn't worry about dropping like 2 marks in your, or even depending on how many marks is your exam. I wouldn't worry about that. As long as you're getting the 15 out of 15, that's most important. External assessment strategy, your raw score on EA, for example, methods, 96 out of 120 equals 80%, does not mean that your total is 40 out of 50, which is 80% in the external. So for example, you shouldn't think, because I think a lot of people misunderstand this and they come out of externals thinking they completely stuffed up specialists, for example. Because of scaling, I've seen a lot of people coming out of specialist exam thinking like barely answering questions, and somehow they still pull out with over 40 out of 50. So whatever you got as your raw score when they mark you on the external assessment, it does not mean that's exactly what you're going to get. So they'll actually, I wouldn't know how to describe it, but they kind of subscale the EA when they give you your out of 50 score. So don't be too bummed when you sit externals. I know it's quite some time now, but if you struggle with that. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that or anything about how it works? Any questions? No? Okay. Okay. Doesn't seem like it's too much. Okay. Next slide. Personal tips. Now I will say the personal tips section is more so it can be different ones can be beneficial for different people. So make sure to experiment to find out what works for you. Don't take them at face value. More general ones though, understanding the value of time. I think that's very important, especially if you're doing extracurricular activities. You need to make sure that you're not wasting time and you're developing a checklist/planner. But in doing the checklist/planner, I don't recommend focusing on it to making it too detailed. Often people get stuck up, excessive planning or even excessive note taking, and it's just becomes more of taking up more of your time than benefiting your time. So it's all about making use of time. I know for me, often I found it easy to work on assignments in the car. I mean, some people get car sick, but personally, that just worked for me. In terms of strategizing English, same thing as I said earlier. Attempt to pass. If personally, I would attempt to pass only IA, which I did pass IA. And then for externals, I decided I didn't want to waste time studying for it or focusing on it too much when I was pretty confident with my other subjects. I mean, even if I got a 25 out of 25 in English, scaling is so impactful that it wouldn't have made a difference. I would have still scaled my lowest. Stop religiously taking notes and making palm cards. This one might be a bit controversial, but personally, I saw so many people spending so many hours before their classes just spamming palm cards, writing palm cards, rather than doing active practice questions, especially for mathematics subjects. I've just got a ping here. Is it harder to get 20s on assignments? Yes, it is harder to get 20s on assignments this year. If we do specific classes, for example, physics and chem student experiment overviews, we'll go through specifically the criteria to help clarify that for you and how you can take advantage of the new criteria to ensure you're still managing to get 20 out of 20s. It is easier to pass though. So it's more balanced. It's easier to pass, harder to get 20 out of 20. Okay, stop religiously taking notes. It's more about not wasting time and having practice. Build a relationship with your teacher. I think this one personally, I found it quite important, especially for subjects such as engineering, if you're doing a big assignment where it relies on the teacher's judgment, or not build a relationship like that. You want to make sure you're in the good books essentially, because even if you're wanting to like change, argue for marks on your exams for maths, as long as you're at good terms with them, that will truly help a lot. Personally, I found that it helped. And also in break time sometimes, or if you have questions after class, as long as you're a good relationship with them, that will be good. And yes, that relationship is purely platonic. I hope it is. Learning content beforehand. This is something I kind of caught on to a bit later, but it is truly beneficial, whether it be watching a 5-minute video before your class. All it takes is to look at what you're going to be learning in that lesson, 5-minute video, and see what you're learning. And in the class, it'll be so much more easier. You're not constantly like completely stressed or completely lost in a new topic. So that's something that you want to focus on. Sacrifice, I guess this is dependent on people. I know some people, they don't need to study as much and they do well, but personally for me, I did have to make time for my studying. For example, I lowered my tennis and I even stopped playing tennis when I had a peak exam periods. So for me, that was something that I had to make as a sacrifice. And does anyone have any questions on any of these tips? Anything they're confused about? Also, am I talking too fast? I feel like I'm talking fast and it's like, okay, good pace. I sacrifice, well, the amount of study time does vary significantly. I've seen people who like barely study so much and they do well and they're getting like extremely good marks. I will say though, you don't have to be a genius to do well. I was never a genius. I'm just like, my UCAT was sub 50th percentile. So like, just saying, I think it was kind of unlucky, but even so, you do not need to be some sort of genius to be able to get above 99. Hours of study, I can't pinpoint it, but for me, I would say it depends. During external period, I was probably doing like 6 hours a day upcoming to externals, 5 hours a day. Do you have suggestions coming up in this for needing to stop taking notes? Do you have any other suggestions coming up in this? Did you mean like, what did you mean by that? Some Johan, do you?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. We might need some clarification on what the question entails.
She said like other study methods, so like flashcards. I know like you'd see it on social media, but there's like AI note takers that does
Mm.
help to an extent. I used it a little bit. Mainly, it's just I think that the big thing is you shouldn't actually be taking notes during class. You shouldn't feel the need to, because what you should really be doing is learning the content beforehand. So the syllabus is your best friend. So this whole dot point, it was kind of something that I did. So obviously the Christmas holidays are like almost over, but during like the Christmas holidays when I was in grade 12, just starting grade 12, I studied for like a majority of like the content for most of my subjects. And what that did is during class, I'd obviously forget it by the time like I actually learn it in class, because if you learn Unit 4 content, you're not going to touch that for another like 6 months, right? So you're obviously going to forget it. But what's going to happen is, because you've already learnt it the first time, the next time you actually like look at that again, it doesn't become like learning, it becomes reviewing. And that helps with your long-term memory, and it helps with your understanding as well. And by learning it beforehand, you yeah, it helps with your understanding, and it also frees that time up during your class. So if you have like an assignment, you can do it then. Or if you wanted to ask like your teacher like a little bit of like a in-depth question, you can still do that, rather than like trying to wrap your head around the basics, because you already did that ages ago. You put the hard work in ages ago. So that's kind of what I'd say, what I'd recommend to avoid like taking like useless repetitive notes in class.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I mean, based on what he was saying, when I went into math class, I just had a whiteboard, and for me, what's important is that you're actively doing questions. You're not spending time too much on theory, especially for maths. What you want to be doing is actively doing practice questions and making sure that you're doing a variety of them. For some people, for example, you have, this is how I view it. Some people, there's like two types of people. Some people rely on pattern recognition. So because they've done so much volume of questions, when they see that type of question, they've already seen it before. So it's easy for them. And then you have another type of people which are really good at problem solving. And those type of people, generally, it's a bit more useful because you can apply it to scenarios that you have not seen before. But for those of you like me who aren't the best at problem solving, you want to be doing volume with maths, specifically maths. You want to be making sure you're doing a volume of questions so that when you see a new question, it's not necessarily you having to completely problem solve, but you already have a general idea of how you want to answer it. That's something that I think is quite important. So you got to decide whether you're someone who needs to do variety or less variety, but more volume. That's something that you can need to decide for. And in terms of econ/accounting, I just saw that in the chat. I'll ask you guys a question. I don't know if you've seen this person. He's posted it on Instagram. He did specialist maths, chemistry, physics, mathematical methods, and accounting. He got hundreds in everything except accounting. Except specialist, he got a 99. So he
But
had
a
top
99
scaling
for
subjects.
chemistry as well.
99 for chemistry, 99 for accounting, 100 in all of his other subjects. Guess what ATAR he got? Those of you who already know, don't. But if you don't know, I'm sure a lot of people know because it's gone quite. Yes, his name is Jason Trevor. Then 0.8, 0.85. Well, you can see it on the video here. He got a 0.75, which is crazy for his scores. So if that doesn't tell you the impact of scaling, you want to make sure that you are not doing a low scaling subject. It makes such a big difference. So that's just something that emphasizes scaling. Quite important. I mean, for me, I didn't even do the best in my subjects, and I managed to get a 0.7. So I almost feel bad for him seeing what he got, and he absolutely threw me off in terms of his average raw score. If I do bio, should I just try to do worse so it doesn't beat my lit scaling? I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, Sam or Johan. I think it depends whether bio or lit is better at scaling. I'm not even sure about that.
Yeah, so
I'm pretty sure it's
literature is
literature.
much better. Literature is much better,
Literature
yeah.
is much better. I mean, as long as you're confident that you can do better in lit, at least try to pass in bio in your eye. So you don't want to flop it because it's a risk. As long as you're passing and you're confident, I think that's fine.
I think the only thing I'll add to that is, from what I've heard at least, literature is like a lot harder to actually do well. Um, like it's a very creative subject from what I've heard from my friends. So just keep that in mind because you might actually find that you're unable to like get really like high marks in literature, and then because of that, you might regret not like putting enough attention into biology. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I mean that falls under building relationship with your teacher. With subjective subjects like that, you always want to make sure that you have that um, good relationship or fail safe, because they can pretty much determine whether you're absolutely screwed or not. Actually, I have an example. There was a kid in my grade who, in chemistry, student experiment, he got marked a 16 out of 20 for his student experiment. And he was like completely confused, everything. He decided to get it remarked and he got moved up to a 19 out of 20. So, and I don't think the teacher liked him very much. So, if your teacher hates you, they can't do it as much now because this criteria is more a bit more clear, but they can find ways to pull you down. And a lot of them, some of them, especially for English, our teachers made it so that they gave us our marks after the date that we can change them. So even though they gave it to us, we couldn't argue for any marks. So that's pretty cooked. Like, you want to have good relationships with your teacher. Yes, that is crazy. I think I saw someone ping me. Good, good
Yeah.
internals, but my externals don't go too well. And bio.
So it would depend on if biology is in your fifth subject, like top 5 subjects. Oh yeah, you said if bio gets included. I'm confused on your message as well though.
Got a DM from my brother telling me I'm talking too much.
I think actually no, Swordham can answer the question, and then I think the next slide is his slide. So
Yep. Are we on to the next slide?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
we'll move on. If people
Okay.
have questions, just keep asking them and ping me or Polaris.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be
Yep.
doing my
Okay.
sections now.
Next section now.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am Some531 and I have 2 sections, building experiences and networking. So from like past 10 years to the past decade, you've been in the classroom. So school's been the huge part of your life, right? You spent like 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, just in school, hang out with mates. So it's pretty central to your life. But then after external exams and ATAR, your life actually moves on. So you have to make choices that shape your future, especially in grade 12. So when it comes to life after high school, I usually see people falling into one of these 3 groups. Does anyone think they're in group 1? Asking the chat. Mm, Okay, yeah, some people think they're in group 1. I see a group 4, which is interesting. And then a group 3 as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different groups of people. But all of these 3 choices I've seen in group 2 as well. Group 2 and 3, yeah. So like a lot of people falls into these 3 categories. And that makes sense because all 3 are actually completely normal. But regardless of which group you're in, everyone benefits from taking time to explore, experience, and investigate different career paths. And then this is the reason why. For Group 1 people who label themselves as certain of their path, there is something very important to double check. The main things is understanding the positives and negatives of that career beyond just the surface level. I can make an example, particularly for medicine. There's a lot of, especially online, like Instagram Reels, TikToks, I see lots of content romanticizing medicine, whereas it's a very, very rigorous road, lots of sacrifices needing to be made, family time needing to be given up, and there's like a lot of difficulty in also uh, getting into specialty training programs. And yeah, it's a very hectic road, and you should always know what you're getting into before you actually start working for it. Another important thing is that if it's a competitive field like medicine or dentistry, you should always have a backup plan, because not only might it fail, but even strong applicants need flexibility, and you shouldn't only apply to one university. I have a friend who got a 99.4, and he had like a 97th, 96th percentile UCAT. But then today he found out that he didn't even get any offers for medicine, which is really rough. But it happens. Even the best applicants don't actually, yeah, it's crazy. Even the best applicants, um, sometimes it's because of their interview, but sometimes in the end of the day, it's all down to luck as well. You never know if you're going to get into a university or not. But because of that, because he had a okay, yeah, I was talking about someone in the chat. Because he had a backup in his sixth slot, he still has options to later join medicine. But because he has that option, it's very good. It's very important to not only apply to one university, because then it would have been even less likely for him to get other offers as well. And then another very important thing, which I see a lot of people stick with, is tunnel vision. So people that often don't get into medicine, they tend to try getting into through the biomedicine postgrad route. And if they get in, which happens a lot as well, then it's all sunshine and rainbows because they got in at the end of the day. They just had to do an extra GAMSAT test. But then there's also a lot of people that do biomedicine, finish their degree, don't get in through the GAMSAT route, and then they're just left with a biomedicine degree. And without further education, like a master's, sometimes even a PhD, it's oftentimes very hard to get employed with a degree in a broad field like that. So yeah, there's so many different careers that you might love that you haven't discovered yet. So you should always make an effort to try being curious and just see other career options, what else you could do. Someone had a question in the chat. Can you retake the GAMSAT and get in after? I'm pretty sure you can do the GAMSAT every 6 months. And yeah, it's a 6 hours exam. It's pretty strenuous, but yeah, you can do the GAMSAT every 6 months, and then you can retake it a lot of times. You can also finish your undergraduate degree and then do the GAMSAT after you finish your degree as well. And I think that's valid up until like 3 or 5 years after your degree. There's still lots of options. Yeah, as someone said in the chat, one of their relatives sat the GAMSAT 8 times until he got in. So yeah, some people are very dedicated, and just know that GAMSAT route, there's a lot of uncertainty, but the good thing about it is that it's not as uncertain and luck based as other exams like the UCAT, because it's based on content especially. So yeah, could we just have the next slide, please? Okay, now that was group 1 people who say they're certain. Now the group 2 people are the people who say, I'll just pick something. So this same feedback kind of applies for group 1 as well, but it's more so leaning towards the third point of staying curious and looking into the degree that you're doing. And a very good thing to do is to talk to people studying or working in that field. So you might know some people personally, you can find some people online, you can go on browsing apps like with threads and stuff, like X or even Reddit, there might be a lot of information on there on how the career is like. Someone asked in the chat, treating bond like a last option. I think that's going to be covered in later slides here, so I'll let Johan take care of that later. But yeah, back to group 2. It's very important to see what you're going to get yourself into, essentially. Understanding the workload, lifestyle, and opportunities before locking it in is something that I only see like less than 50% of people doing, like after graduating grade 12. So it's pretty rough. Someone asked, is the game set 6 hours in one go, no breaks? I'm pretty sure there's a 45-minute break in between, like halfway through after one section. So yeah, even though I'm not going into medicine or dentistry, I was initially planning to go into dentistry, so I still know a lot of information on it, which is helpful now, especially. Mhm. Okay, group 3 people, the people that say they're fully unsure. And this is honestly how everyone starts out with, right? They think, what should I spend the rest of my life doing? And then before you know, you get caught up with exams, the rest of high school, and then you just lose time that you realize. And now you're at the end of high school or when QTech is due, and then you have to somehow choose the degree that you're doing that can ultimately shape the rest of your life. And it's a very, very rough place to be in if you're unsure. And the best way to be less unsure is to investigate because you have a lot of opportunities to look into different career paths. You can talk to professionals or uni students depending on your career path that you're aiming for, and you should always try your best to explore different options without having some pressure because you still have time to decide. A really good way to gain exposure is through working experience, volunteering, part-time jobs, or shadowing professionals. Someone asked in the chat, what if you dislike everything? That is a very good question because that happens a lot. But to be honest, it's very rough. It's very like rough to say if you like or even dislike anything because you don't know anything yet. Because you haven't been in the shoes of what you're going into. So the best way to find out if you do dislike everything, what you should do is pick what you dislike the most. I mean, wait, dislike the least, of course. Because then do that, you could hopefully build a tolerance to it. But yeah, even if you dislike everything, life moves on. You're gonna have to pick something at some point, whether it be uni, doing a trade. Thank you, Kaju, for that very informative information session about the GAMSAT. So yeah, that person in the chat right now is a UQ medical student that got through the GAMSAT route, so he has a lot of information on postgrad. Yeah, ultimately the core message I'm trying to convey is that no matter who you are, the best way to gain clarity about your future is to build experiences. Because a lot of times, even right now, so many people are unsure of what they want to do in uni. However, afterwards in university, there's a lot of people that go into the degree, get through it, or like try to get through it, but then it's just too rough. They can't enjoy it at all. It has like they have no interest for it, so it's just unbearable for them. A lot of people switch degrees, which is always an option. That of course comes with demerits such as taking more time, but it's of course better than just staying in the degree that you can't see yourself doing. Yeah, and there's some like stigma around people switching degrees, but it's very important to remember that the degree that you do doesn't exactly define who you become. And there's always options to switch degrees, such as Polaris mentioned in the chat, Matt Martin, someone that got a 99.95 ATAR in 2023, he initially did Griffith Medicine for a year. And even though that was going well, he was getting straight 7 GPA out of a 7 GPA score. He still decided to ultimately switch degrees. Griffith Medicine to UQ Engineering, and now he's having a blast with that. Oh yeah, another thing that Polaris mentioned is do not feel pressured with a high ATAR to commit to a high ATAR degree. Or yeah, career degree. So an important example I have to make of that is gonna be, I'll type in the chat, the Bachelor of Engineering slash Master of Engineering. I see a lot of people wanting to do engineering and then they see this degree and they think, wow, it's a degree that saves me a year, but regardless of which, it's still an extra year from the normal engineering degree. So you should still know what you're getting into. And yet, another person in the chat, Jaden, he had a very high ATAR, especially given his subjects, and he ultimately decided to do Bachelor of Computer Science with the Master in Cyber. And instead of separately, it would have been 5 years, but then because of that vertical dual degree, it was going to be 4 years. And then even so, right now he's actually not even sure of staying or not because it really doesn't define you. And he might just go to regular Bachelor of Computer Science, drop the vertical, and that's perfectly fine as well. You should always see what options you have, and then from there, you can see like different outcomes. And from those outcomes, choose what best suits you. Don't chase like the degree and the label. See what the actual outcome would be. So yeah, another important thing to mention is trying different environments such as work experience, as I touched on before, because a lot of times we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. Someone asked in the chat, how do you know what you like? The best way, as this slide says, the best way to gain clarity is to build experiences such as work experience, work with different people. This is something very important. In school, if you just stay with one friend group, you kind of get like sheltered from the outside world and you don't even like get to see other career paths. So yeah, when you work with different people, you can also see different personalities and what other people want to do, which gives you options to see. And then another very important thing I see, especially for people who are choosing between universities such as UQ or QT, I see a lot of people wanting to do QT because of the slogan, right? QT, for the real world. But although some courses might be more practical, as a whole, if you look into the degrees themselves, compared to UQ, there's a lot of similarities in, for example, the amount of work hours you need to graduate in like pharmacy, engineering, education. So that point of more practical is kind of overstated, especially because it's the slogan. And then you also want to see if you want to actually have more practical stuff, because you wouldn't really know if you want more practical stuff if you haven't been exposed to it before. So that might just be another way of saying that you don't want to study. And yeah, these experiences can help you understand what career, lifestyle, and environment you'll actually enjoy. So yeah, some people say that some people don't want to go into QT. They've never heard of that. But in my school, I think about 50% of the people are going to QT and like maybe 20% are going to UQ, which is pretty surprising, of course, given the cohorts. Yeah, I like the Kaju's message. But yeah, it also depends a lot on the degree that they have. I have a friend that is going to QT because there's a Bachelor of Biomedicine slash Master of Data Science degree. And that would save her 6 months if she did it separately at UQ. But yeah, the main core message is that you don't need to have your whole life planned out because no one can. Because there's always unexpectancies that happen. And the main thing that you should do is just start exploring. Yeah, could you go to the next slide? Okay, another section. This section might initially raise a few eyebrows because we hear the term networking, especially in the context of LinkedIn. And as a whole, there is a lot of unnecessary fluff, I guess. and a lot of people just chase the connection amount. But there are very, very important things to do while networking. So once you've actually decided on a course or general direction, this would probably be around this time next year for the 2026 graduates and like 2 years after for the 2027 graduates. The very important thing to do is to actually try building connections with people. The best way to do this would be to try connecting with students or professionals doing the degree that you're going to do or a similar career path that you're going to do. It's not about being fake or asking people for jobs. It's about connecting with people who are a few steps ahead of you and then you can learn from them. It's very important because of the insight you gain, where you can connect with students and professionals, which gives you an actual realistic picture of the field, especially if it's the same degree and the same uni. For example, if you're studying software engineering, which is one thing that I'm considering, you can see what projects they're working on, what clubs, societies, or even competitions they're involved in, and what skills actually matter beyond the classroom. And then this exposure can actually help shape your own goals and inspire you to try new things. Another thing is that it can actually build confidence because in high school, you're often able to just walk into a classroom, sit with some people, and then just talk with them because you're forced to go to school. But in university, you don't necessarily have that same amount of aspect of connecting with people, not just in university, but also in the real world, like outside in different careers. You have to put yourself out there, especially. So the best way, you have to be able to learn how to start conversations, ask questions, and you have to put yourself out there. And these are crucial life skills, not just for uni, but also for your career and for yourself, because humans are ultimately social beings. And then there's also a lot of hidden opportunities within connecting with people. I think I know about 2 or 3 people that are doing internships right now. And the way that they gained access to those particular internships, wasn't from just applying with their resume online or something. They actually had some connection there, and through that they gained a referral, and that's how they landed their internships. And yeah, a third year this same cybersecurity/cyber student from before is actually commenting right now, and yeah, he agrees that it's the easiest way for internships. So yeah, take it from someone that's from uni as well. Main takeaway is that you can start early. Make sure you don't start too early because it's often redundant, but it does also depend on your career path that you're trying to get. Someone says it's giving nepotism. That is a very solid point. Nepotism is unfortunate about how you kind of need it, but I mentioned his name earlier. Okay. Nepotism's difficult like to earn as well because you can't earn it because you're born with it. But you can foster connections that have similar results to nepotism. It's not fair, but it's very helpful. You have to hate the system, you can't hate the player. And yeah, nepotism is a reality you can't really avoid. You can try your best to align with the reality though. Do not be afraid to reach out to people because a single conversation can actually change the direction of your university experience or even your career. An example of this would actually be someone that I actually hit up on LinkedIn. And then from that, I actually became really good friends with him. And then he even invited me to his church a few times. I went there a few times. We talk often as well. And I even introduced him to a degree, the Bachelor of Engineering and Math degree, whereas he was originally planning to do the Bachelor of Engineering/Master of Engineering. And then from that, if I didn't reach out to him, he wouldn't have been exposed to this other degree. And now he's thinking of switching, and he actually got his offer today. So yeah, I befriended him because we had the same subjects and we were also the academic prefects of our school. But yeah, him and I also have similar career interests as well after high school and especially in uni. And yeah, another story in the chat, Kaju said that they had a random conversation with a pharmacist and then they offered him a job at their local pharmacy after learning that he was in med. So yeah, anything is possible, as he said. It's very, it seems to talk to people, but it's how life works. The most unexpected connections that you can make become your like closest friends. Because at the end of the day, your best friends, like 90% of your best friends, were once strangers. And I think everyone can relate to that. There's another important point about don't be getting too obsessed over networking, and that you should prioritize your personal growth. Because if you get too obsessed over networking, it oftentimes become like unnecessary and also redundant because you're just doing it for the sake of connecting with people instead of actually connecting with people. And yeah, a lot of people, especially on LinkedIn, chase the label of having 500 plus connections, as Jaden said. Yeah, it's very unnecessary, particularly for as a whole. For certain roles, such as a content creator, it might be helpful, but there's other important things. But yeah, that marks the end of my section. I hope you guys will be able to build experiences and network with meaningful people.
Okay, thanks, William. My section is about medicine. I think what we might do is, do you guys want a break or something like that?
Yeah,
Because this is
does anyone want like a content question break?
yeah, because like this is a bit more specific. Up until now was general stuff. So if you're interested for like this med information, just stick around.
Yeah.
And yeah,
We'll have like
we'll
a
be
5-minute break. Yeah,
And
we'll have
then, by the way, guys, it's pretty similar.
Oh yeah, dentistry is also similar, but yeah. Okay, just shoot your questions and then we can.
Yeah, just type your questions below.
The silence. What is the difference
Go
between
ahead.
GameSat and UCAT? UCAT's basically like something you do when you're in high school. It's like an entirely multi-choice, well, almost entirely multi-choice thing. GameSat is for when you're in uni and like you want to do like a postgraduate like medical program, and it's a lot more I'd say stressful. I guess it's a lot more stressful. It's like 5 hours, 6 hours, and it also like um, I'm not too familiar with how it is. You can ask Kaju, but I think there's like very specific like science components and stuff that you have to learn for it. While UCAT is more on just like basic skills that you need.
Yeah.
But the big difference is that one is used for like high school graduates, one is used for people who are already in uni and want to do postgraduate medicine.
Or dentistry, yeah.
Yeah.
For the people, yeah. So someone asked for the people who were slash for the people who are slash were looking to do medicine. What were your backups? And they need ideas that they're stumped for backups.
For me, I chose pharmacy because pharmacy, you can at least get a decent job with it if you don't do well in the GameSat. So what my idea was, with doing pharmacy, I would try for the GameSat and try get into med that way. And because pharmacy still covers like most, I think all of the basic content that you need for the MD program, then you're just fine. And on the off chance that you don't do well in GameSat and you don't get into med through the postgraduate route, you do end up having like a pretty useful degree. A lot of people do like biomedical science, stuff like that. But if you don't actually get into medicine with that, you are pretty much stuck with a useless degree. That was said before. So yeah, pharmacy is something, like nursing as well. I think that's something else to consider. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to overlap with the med section, but I do know someone. For those of you wondering about GAMSAT, they did optometry. I think they reset UCAT multiple times, and I think on their seventh or eighth try they got in. So they did 4 years of optometry, and now they're doing medicine in Melbourne or Sydney. I think Sydney. They're doing m- uh, sorry, they're doing medicine in Sydney. So basically, because it's provisional entry, they wasted only 1 year. So those 3 years of optometry count as their, I think it's a pre-degree, like how you do
Yeah, like the
in medicine
undergraduate.
at, yeah, it basically covers the undergraduate. So they've only wasted 1 year. Of course, it's a risk, like Johan said. You if you're stuck with a degree, that's less useful. But it just depends on trusting yourself.
Um, sure. Got you. Do you think I can get into postgraduate med with dentistry? Yeah, that is something people do. It's definitely like a little bit overkill in my eyes because they're like separate professions almost. But some people do dentistry as like an undergraduate and then go into postgraduate medicine.
Isn't that like something to do with maxillofacial max facts or something?
I think so. Yeah.
Heard they like take only like 10 people in Australia or something, or maybe
Yeah.
Queensland. I don't know. I could have got it wrong.
How many hours of UCAT practice is recommended per day? Um, Now at this stage, I'm gonna be doing like a UCAT masterclass, by the way, just as an announcement. It's still in the works. It's taken a while, but I will cover most of like the UCAT related stuff there. But just to answer your question, rap man, how many hours? I wouldn't even be doing like hours at this point. I'd be doing like 30 to 45 minutes maybe. Just so you don't burn yourself out and you don't like use your resources too quickly. Once you get closer to your test date, you should definitely be like ramping it up. So maybe like an hour or two. But definitely for now, like 30 to 45 minutes is plenty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, just to interrupt, do you think it's fine if Kaju gets added to the stage and then whenever some people have questions for him, because he's experienced in this sector,
Oh, yeah.
especially for
So
GAMSAT,
absolutely.
he'd unmute and answer them? Yeah, I'll just invite him
Could
to the
you, like,
stage.
yeah.
So yeah, I sent the invitation and now he's here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So yeah, if anyone has questions for Kaju as well, he can now answer it a little bit easier instead of typing it all out.
How do you apply for other state unis? Okay, this is interesting as well. So for Queensland, we have QTAC. And like that, each state has their own like tertiary center. So for New South Wales, it's called UAC. For Victoria, it's VTAC. South Australia is SATAC. You kind of get the idea from that. And it's pretty much the same as how you apply for QTAC. Sometimes you do have to be aware, especially if you're applying for like med or stuff like that. They do have different cutoffs. So you just have to keep in mind. But yeah, how you apply for other state unis, it's going through their specific like tertiary centers.
Yeah. On that note, I'm pretty sure it was University of Sydney that not a few years ago, last year, or 2024, there was a person that got a 99.95 in this server. And then he actually was requested to fly out to Sydney for an interview. And he had like a 1 day notice, which was pretty cooked. It was Panda.
Oh yes,
Amanda.
I know USYD. I think I was asking Kaju about I contacted him about USYD, asking for tips about the interview, and then I got into someone else's contact, and they said that I think on the 15th you get the offer, which is today. I know some people that did get it, I think. And then on the 19th, you have to be there for the event, I think.
Yep.
So if you don't live in Sydney, you'd have to fly out soon.
Yeah. Just to clarify again, with the Sydney interview, if anybody's interested in what that looks like, at the undergrad level, I believe it's sort of like a panel interview. So they just sort of stand there, they ask you questions, and then you answer them. There's not necessarily any strict timings. There's also a written section, which is very strange, but it's similar to the one at Bond, if you've heard anything about that. And finally, also in terms of how you apply to medicine, in case you were curious, maybe you're a year 12 graduate and you're starting uni now. The reason why I've been such a vocal advocate for trying for postgrad medicine as well is because you notice how this like theme of for undergrad med, they kind of just like have these 10 really good applicants with a 99.95 and a 99th UCAT just applying everywhere and then getting an interview, right? Basically, they just hog interviews at a bunch of places, which raise the cutoffs everywhere else. But with the postgrad level, the beauty of that is it works as a preferencing system. So there's a preferencing portal called GEMSAS where you can preference up to 6 universities that you want to apply to. And you will get the interview only at a singular university that is your highest possible preference where you can get it. So say, for example, my number one pref is Uni Melb and I get the scores needed to get the interview there. Boom, I've got my Uni Melb interview. I don't get any other interviews. And so obviously that means that, let's say people applying to UQ, there's less competition for an institution like UQ because there's less people in Queensland. And also all the high achievers are sort of being isolated to New South Wales and Victoria. So the cutoffs for Queensland as a result will be a little bit more manageable for everybody else because of this stratification. Obviously, if you don't get it at your first preference, you go down the cascade of preferences till you get an interview. This is exactly what happened to me as well. It's a bit more equitable. It's a lot better than this weird, shitty system of like one really good applicant being able to interview everywhere.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. I think that's enough time. I might as well get started onto my section now.
Yep.
So, obviously, I'm just going to be talking a little bit about med, like the pathways, what you need to do to be competitive, stuff like that. As like all of you would know, it is one of, if not the most coveted degree in Australia. So it's understandably very hard to get in. Every year there's like thousands of applicants and like a very, very limited number of spots. So the competition is quite insane. And because of that insane competition, you do need to know what unis require to actually seem like a good applicant in their eyes. So most unis, they require 3 components, and that's the ATAR, UCAT, and interview. This is for like applying from high school, not from a postgraduate thing. I'll get into that in a second. So I said here, excellent adjusted ATAR, like a 99.5 plus is usually pretty solid. 99.5, it should be okay for some interstate unis. Interstate means if you're a Queensland student and you're applying to Victoria, for example, that's interstate. And I said adjusted ATAR. If I feel like everyone should know what adjustments are by now. If no one knows what adjustments is, just pop it in the chat. I'm sure someone can explain it. The next one is obviously a good UCAT. I put just like a rough number here, the 93rd percentile. This number, 93rd, it's good for like most local unis. For example, UQ's like UCAT cutoff to get an interview this year was like the 89th percentile, I believe. So 93rd percentile or above, it's like for local unis, it's usually pretty safe. The only time you'll have a problem with like a score like this is when you're trying to apply to interstate. So again, like if you're in Queensland and you're trying to apply to Monash University, which is in Victoria, for that, Monash is very, very like local biased. So they have like very high interstate requirements. So you need like a 98th or 99th percentile UCAT. And you also need like a 99.9 ATAR. So stuff like that, it does matter. So you do need to understand where you want to apply and where you want to ideally go, so you can kind of adjust your goals based on that. And the final thing is a good interview. For this one, there's not like a fixed number. Obviously, you want to get it as high as possible. I think I've heard from some people that for UQ, like a 75%. Oh, okay. So want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick just to clarify. These stats, like these particular numbers, are only for people that are metro, so non-rural.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very important thing to clarify because interstate, especially unis such as Monash, they have people with even like 38 percentile UCAT and 94 ATAR getting in. There was someone earlier.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, go on.
so there's like it's like an unofficial thing. It's called the rural buff. So if you are rural, and I think the requirements for that, I don't know if they're different per state or per uni, but I think the requirements for that is like 5 years consecutively rural, like living rural, or 10 years in total, or something like that.
Yep.
And if you do satisfy that, you like these requirements are a lot safer, like a lot lower. Like he said, sort of said, like you don't need like as high of a UCAT or as high of an ATAR. And I like the whole reasoning behind it is, from what I understand, people who come from a rural background are more likely to serve like a rural community. So obviously we have like a rural doctor shortage, and so the government's trying to have like some mandatory rural seats so that you can have these rural doctors who will likely go back into their own like town to practice, something like that. Anyways, back to the interview. Yeah, so no fixed number. Obviously, you want to get it as high as possible. And a really interesting thing is, I'll just read off the slide for this. Each university weighs performance in each component uniquely to get your final score, rank, something like that. And for example, UQ, 25% of that final score, 25% of your ATAR. Hang on, okay, 25% of your final score is from your ATAR, 25% of your final score is from your UCAT, right? And 50% of it is from your MMI. So what this means is, for something like UQ, a university like UQ, if you don't do as well on your ATAR or your UCAT, right, but you do really well on your MMI, the multiple mini interviews, it can compensate in a way for like your poor performance in the other components, which is what I said down here. There are some unis like Monash which take ATAR, UCAT, and the interview equally. But for a lot of unis, a lot of universities, they do have a big focus on the interview performance. So the interview is like probably the biggest component. And yeah, although I say the interview is the biggest component, in terms of importance, I'll say UCAT and the interview are equally important. And the reason I say this is because if you don't have a good UCAT, you can't even get an interview. The UCAT's like the first stage of like filtering through students, because you can imagine universities probably have like hundreds and thousands of students applying, so they need to filter students somehow. And the UCAT is like the first stage of that. So they filter, and only people with a high UCAT score can actually get an interview. So like your interview is reliant on your UCAT. So that's why I'd say they're both equally important and equally important to pay attention to. Interviews is probably the only thing a little bit neglected, because a lot of times, like UQ, for example, their interview was 2 weeks or so after externals finished. So you don't really have a lot of time to study for it. I didn't. I neglected my UQ interview. So yeah, it's definitely the most neglected, and it's probably the one that bites people as well. Okay, moving on. Some unis, they take only ATAR. The big three is Griffith, University of Sydney, and JCU. Oh, yeah. Polaris, you can jump in.
I just wanted to clarify if anyone has any questions for JCU and USYD. I've done quite a bit of research on, like, if you have questions about what they ask in the panel discussion or the written assessment, which is something they have both at USYD, feel free to DM me. In terms of JCU, I'm sure most of you know, Med now they have removed the written application, so you just get they say on their website that they look at your overall personal profile. I'm not sure what that means. I don't think anyone knows what that means. But from history, most rural people get an offer for the interview. But based on that, you'll see if you get an interview. JCU Dent still, for this year at least, had a written application. So it kind of gives a chance for those non-rural kids to explain their keenness in rural dentistry and their volunteering, etc. So if you guys have any questions on those unis, feel free to let me know.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks for that. Also, another thing I'll just jump in. JCU Med takes ATAR along with the interview. Unlike what the slide says. Just a slight correction.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, they do have their own interview. Just answering the question in the chat quickly. What's a good UCAT? It's really, really hard to say because each university, they do have like different standards. I'm not sure if JMP has like a separate cutoff for interstate that's different to local students, but I know because I applied to JMP this year, the joint medical program there in New South Wales, right? And the UCAT they needed to be considered for an interview was the 99th percentile. And then compare that to what I said before, UQ, like as a local student, you only need like an 89th percentile UCAT. So it really depends on where you want to go. And based on that, you can kind of ask around and you can figure out what a good percentile is or what a good score is. And normally you don't say what a good UCAT score is because the scores themselves, they can fluctuate. For example, this year, the UCAT cohort, I guess, the UCAT test taking people this year, the percentiles might be different. So last year, a 2310, right? That was the 90th percentile for the UCAT, which was a little bit higher than expected. Most people did not expect it to be that inflated, right? Most people thought it would be like 2260, something like that. So yeah, you don't normally aim for a particular score. You usually aim for a particular percentile. But with that being said, just obviously try to get as high as you can. Okay, the only other thing with this slide, some other unis may have their own special tests. The two big ones is the Bond psychometric test. I think their psychometric test replaces the UCAT, so they don't look at the UCAT, they only look at their own test. And then Curtin is a university in Western Australia, I believe. They have their own CASPA test as well. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick again. In the previous
Yeah.
slide. A lot of this applies particularly to domestic students and also international students, but also I have a friend that was an international student and the process of medicine for him was a lot different.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, Johan probably knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I think what it
You
is
might
for
know more of
international
it.
students, they don't actually, I think they have the choice to take the UCAT, but I believe international students, they have to take something called the ISAT.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the full form of it is. And the problem with the ISAT is not every university actually accepts it. Like UQ, for example, does not. Yeah, exactly. ISAT is only for like 4 or 5 unis. UQ does not look at the ISAT. So that is just something to keep in mind if you are an international student. You may have to do both, I guess. If you want to apply to every medical school, you might have to do both tests, which is probably going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
Okay,
Got
yeah.
offer. Yeah, that person got an offer. I think 2 offers before ATARs even came out, which is crazy.
Yeah. Okay, this is just a really quick timeline. Doesn't really mean too much. July, August, this is the UCAT testing period. And like I said, that is like the first stage of like unis filtering students. So like along with maintaining like good grades, good internal grades, you should really have like an increasing focus on this UCAT. Because like I said before, with a bad UCAT, you can't even get an interview. And like if you get a bad UCAT and if you have like a phenomenal ATAR, suddenly like most of the unis in Australia, you don't have a shot at. So my tip is, okay, I said start some light prep now. I made these slides like last year. So probably if you haven't already started UCAT preparation, definitely start it by now. If you have started UCAT preparation, I'd say don't burn yourself out. Like I was saying before, maybe 30 to 45 minutes a day is good, and definitely ramp it up as you get closer to your exam day. November, that's the externals for us. No explanation needed for that. Between November and January, I think it's November to January, that's when the uni interviews come out for medicine. For example, UQ was, like I said, 2 weeks after the externals finished. When should I start mini mocks?
Test mocks.
Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe not
2 weeks before. It's not easy to answer. I'd say probably if you're feeling comfortable with a subtest, then try like a mini mock, because that is like actually UCAT exam like simulated. So if you're feeling comfortable, try it. There isn't like a set date. What I can suggest is, for now, although I will talk about this in the UCAT masterclass, is if people haven't already started preparing for their UCAT, there is 2 main platforms for UCAT preparation. It's Medify and MedEntry, right?
Yeah.
And something that actually I learnt from a past graduate, someone would know who I'm talking about. The gold standard for UCAT preparation are mocks, right? Not mini mocks as such. Mocks are the gold standard because they simulate the exam the best compared to
Yeah.
just like a normal question bank.
Yeah, for sure.
So what you want to do is you want to maximize the amount of mocks available to you and the amount of mocks that you do. The best way to maximize the amount of mocks available to you is to buy MedEntry first, because they don't have like, they only have like a 1 year kind of subscription. They don't have like a 1 month subscription or like a 1 week subscription. Medify has those types of subscriptions, like the shorter ones. So what I learned, what I realized, it was too late for me. But if you buy MedEntry first, and then as you get closer to your exam, if you buy Medify, which is the other one, like a shorter subscription of that, you'll have the most amount of mocks available to you. And the best way to actually complete all of them out is just plan when you're going to do it. So just have like a rough estimate of when you're going to sit your exam. Obviously, I don't think the booking date is open yet, right? For
Yeah, it opens around
booking
March.
your, yeah, booking your UCAT. So have like a rough estimate of when you're going to do it. And with that rough estimate, try to plan to put all your mocks in because that is the maximum preparation. Bro, I saw Medify. Is it going to affect me? Okay. I say start with med entry, but at the end of the day, it's not about how many mocks you do. Obviously, it's good to do as many as possible. But like you'll hear it a lot. It's quality over quantity, right? If you just do mindless mocks, it's not going to help you at all. For me personally, I did Medify first, right? So I never had any like exposure to med entry. I never used it for any med preparation. I didn't even do all of the Medify mocks or the mini mocks. I think I only did like 12 potentially. And I got a 96th percentile on my UCAT. So just let that be like a, I don't know, like a my anecdote, right? So you don't need to do all of these. It won't screw you up. It's definitely about how you improve and how you like notice like your weaknesses from each mock.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, with that being said, definitely if you have the opportunity, try to complete as many of them as possible. And yeah, obviously look at your performance afterwards, see what you did well with, what you didn't do well with, and like you can tune your next mock or your next preparation for that.
Yeah. Another thing I'll add quickly is that, or if you're buying mid entry in particular, there's some like discount codes, I guess, from different
Yep.
creators. And I'll type one in the chat. This person actually has a code. You can search them up and then you can get like 10% off of your purchase, which is pretty nice for mid entry.
Yeah.
Imogen K. Yeah.
Oh, Imogen K is also the same person that I learnt the whole med entry first, then Medify strategy from. So
Yeah.
credit goes to her for that. So where was I? Yeah. November to January, that's university interviews. It's like kind of spread across this period. I honestly, I don't know too much about what they are because yeah, with my scores, I got a total of one med interview. But yeah, and then December, January, that's when most med offers come out. Not all. Bond is a bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much all that this slide has to offer. Okay, this is a lot of information, but we can go through it very quickly. So this is just about the four main pathways for medicine. It's the undergraduate, provisional, and the postgraduate pathway. So let's just quickly get through this. Undergraduate is you come out of high school, you finish your 12. You finish your 12 and you immediately start studying medicine out of school. Like that's the first thing you learn in uni. That is pretty much what the undergraduate pathway is. And these universities, JCU, Bond, Monash, UNSW, they are the undergraduate unis, right? What they need to get into it is, like I said before, the ATAR, the UCAT, and the interview. Obviously, Bond and Curtin have their own stuff, so the other stuff if they need it. And the good thing about this, at least from my eyes, right, what's good about undergraduate is you don't have to like do anything else, right? You don't have to do like another course, like a prerequisite course. You can just immediately study medicine. If your passion is like that great, and if you want to, if your whole like dream is just to start practicing medicine as soon as possible, right? Undergraduate's probably like the best pathway for you. Obviously, I don't have experience with it. This is just like the benefits I can imagine from a third party. Provisional is the big pathway for Queensland because our biggest unis, Griffith, what is this? Why do undergraduate uni other than JCU have some random Bachelor of Science degree / MD?
Well, just in terms of that question about the random Bachelor of Science, I do know for for dentistry, I don't know if that's relevant to you. Something interesting I found is that USYD does 7 years instead of 5 years, and they have a 3-year Bachelor of Science before you do your Doctor of Dental Medicine. So that's something that you don't usually see with dentistry, like usually Griffith, JCU. I think UQ, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're all 5 years. So the reason
UQ's
why
4
they do
years.
that, when I did research, I'm not sure if
Oh,
this is like
never.
extends over to med as well. The reason why I saw for USYD at least they do the Bachelor of Science is because they have a focus on research. So they really want to hone in on the research and evidence-based aspect of the career. So they'll do like a research group project in the 3 year, and they want people to have like a better overall science foundation in research first. At least that's what I found.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, provisional entry is the big one for Queensland because both Griffith and UQ, they both work on a provisional entry kind of thing, right? And what provisional entry means is your spot in like the MD program, right? That spot is reserved for you. All you have to do is just do like some sort of undergraduate course, like a suitable undergraduate course before that, right? So for UQ, the prerequisites for UQ's MD is there's like 2 courses. I think Kaju can tell you what those 2 prerequisites are, right? And all you have to do is just do like an approved course from UQ, maintain 5 GP. Yeah, do an approved course that UQ has approved that hits those prerequisites. And as long as you do that with your provisional entry, you are guaranteed to be able to go into postgraduate medicine. Like Ash has said in the chat as well, you also do need to maintain a high GPA, right? I think for UQ it is like a 5.5 or above. And basically all that's trying to stop is you can't just get your provisional offer and then completely bomb your bachelor's because like say your only focus was on medicine. You can't just bomb your bachelor's because of that and then go into your MD program. You actually do have to actually do well in the bachelor's anyways. As to what unis do it, like University of Melbourne, Griffith, UQ. UniSC is Griffith's like partner university for people who don't know, and CQU and USQ are UQ's partner unis. Yeah, and Flinders, University of Sydney, stuff like that. You guys can read. And the benefit of this, at least to me, is like knowing like you can do like a postgraduate thing and it's your spot is reserved. That is quite reassuring. And a benefit of this is like during your like undergrad, right? Because your spot is already reserved, you can kind of explore some other fields you're interested in, like something related to math, for example, in your undergraduate. You could do that. So those are like the benefits of provisional entry. Postgraduate entry, pretty straightforward if you understood provisional entry. It's the medicine, you like join the medicine program after completing like any sort of undergraduate. Right, I think the main one. I don't think there's any others. I think it's only the Doctor of Medicine program. Pretty much all provisional universities have. Actually, this is a lie. This is false. Don't look at this. You do. You're gonna have to do your own research if you want to see what things have postgraduate entry. As to what they require, this is where the GAMSAT comes in, right? So GPA, obviously, like provisional, you need to maintain a high GPA. And now, because you have started uni, you don't use the UCAT anymore, you use the GAMSAT. Of course, Kaju can talk about it if he wants to. From what I've heard, it's a bit brittle, so that's why I prefer to do the UCAT over the GAMSAT. And then, of course, the interview is just the same. You always need to do an interview. The benefits of postgraduate is pretty much like the same as provisional almost. Um, in the way that like how undergraduate you jump straight into studying medicine, that could be a bit of a I'll say issue because I can't really think of a better word. But some people might not be ready with that like big jump, right? So it kind of eases you into it. So you actually do something else like an undergraduate to fill in like the gap. Like I said before, you can explore other things in your undergraduate. And then also something that I've noticed is with the postgraduate course, it's usually shorter than an undergraduate course, just because a postgraduate course implies you've already done some sort of tertiary study. And because of that, they can cut out some of the fluff and just like leave like pure content, if that makes sense. While an undergraduate, because it's like your first time studying in uni, I think like they add some extra courses and stuff that you have to do for your course. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The honorable mention is the gap year. The gap year is when you take a year off after year 12, right? And you don't go to university yet, and you resit the UCAT. The UCAT is only valid for 1 year, right? And you apply again with the new ATAR plus UCAT combination. Well, your ATAR wouldn't have changed, your UCAT would have changed. ATAR is valid, I think it's valid indefinitely as long as you don't start university. I think once you do start like tertiary study, it's valid for 2 years, maybe. Someone could fact check me. But yeah, UCAT is only valid for that year. So every time you want to like say you didn't get into med this year, you want to try next year, every single time you do that, you have to reset the UCAT. The only problem with this is some universities like UQ, they don't accept this form of entry. They only accept like high school graduates. So you need to be straight out of high school to actually be eligible to apply for like their provisional entry pathway. So yeah, that's important to check. I don't have that information with me right now. That's, I don't know, a bit of homework for you guys, I guess. But yeah. Oh, the only other thing I'll say with taking a gap year, it's, in my eyes at least, it's a bit risky. Because with a gap year, if you're not doing any sort of study, you kind of lose like that, like the study skills, right? And then, so you've stopped studying for an entire year. You've done like other stuff, maybe full-time work. I mean, other than like resetting the UCAT, if you haven't done like actual study, then once you go back into university, you might realize like you're really rusty, right? And you might lose a bit of your motivation because of that. So that's the only thing I'll comment on with gap year. But yeah, I don't know if you
If
guys.
I could just,
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
go
you
on.
go. Could you? No, you go on.
No, I just wanted to say if you do get provisional med at UQ, take the opportunity to do a degree that's actually practical. So, pharm, physiotherapy, any nursing as well, any other allied health professions, I think are pretty valuable. The reason why I say this is because, first of all, you get all the practical knowledge of how to handle a stethoscope. You get to perform some physical examinations. You also learn how to take a really good history, things that are fairly useful in an OSCE, and also in a hospital, obviously. There's a good clinical base and framework of thinking before you start medicine. But most importantly, you can just have an actual job in medicine, which not a lot of your provisional folks in UQ like have at the moment because all they really do is tutor. And that's really like tutoring is really seasonal, and as an income source, it can be really shoddy. So having a job at like Chemist Warehouse or being able to work as a licensed physiotherapist, if you go so far as getting your registration, it could be really handy. But also, if you decide to pull the plug early because maybe you have a more stable job, say working at a nursing home or something like that, do that as well because there is early exit from a lot of those degrees. For example, if you want to withdraw from pharmacy, after 3 years, that just becomes a Bachelor of Pharmaceutical Science, and you can still, in theory, continue working at your local chemist warehouse, and they'll still accept you because you were at some point a pharmacy student. Do not, in the position that you're in, provisional med, just do biomed or science like everyone else. You can do that if you want an easy time, but I can say financing yourself will be a little bit difficult in med. Only do those degrees as they're good for maxing out your GPA if you're looking at postgraduate medicine. That's the only instance where I would recommend against allied health, because they're very risky towards your GPA, and you can sort of take the hit if you're in provisional, but you can't really take the hit if you're not in provisional. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I think that was some great points and insight from Kaju. Does anyone have any questions on that, by the way? I don't want to just jump over from Kaju's topic.
Approved courses.
Okay.
I'll find the document and I'll send it in a second. UQ has like a list. I mean, I know UQ has a list. I don't know about other unis.
The only thing I wanted to add that I was going to add is just in terms of gap year. I do know someone who took a gap year and resat UCAT with a 98.48, I think, and they reset the UCAT and they got above a 90th percentile and they got into Griffith dentistry. So with a 98.4 and a good UCAT, Griffith dentistry, they must have done well in the interview, obviously, but you have to be able to trust yourself that you're not going to slack off. If you're being time wisely, it can be a risk for some people. Like some people completely go lazy in a gap year. As long as you know that you're disciplined, you're going to be making use of it, whether it be either working a job and studying for UCAT, just gaining some money and experience, or it be focusing on other things you might otherwise not had been able to focus on. I think for those people, it might be worth taking the gap year. Otherwise, as Kaju said, GAMSAT pathway is just as good, and I'm sure he could help anyone out that needs to go into a GAMSAT pathway.
Yep. Give me a moment. I'm just sending the link to. Yep. So that link is from UQ and it just lists all like the approved stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, there's all the approved courses from different universities as well there.
Yep. So not only UQ, like other courses as well. The two like prerequisites is systems physiology and like integrative cell biology, something like that. So that link just like lists the degrees that do cover that, or like something similar to that if they don't have it by that exact name. Well, we're done anyways.
Yeah, I did want to emphasize though, because I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat that are not rural, saying about like, I'll just do JCU Dent, I'll just do JCU Dent as like a side thing. So I just wanted to clarify to those people, yes, JCU can give an opportunity to those who have not got the highest ATAR, and it is possible. And one of the things I do recommend is starting volunteering opportunities now, or at least early year 12. If you're in grade 11, you don't have to worry about it too much, whether it be shadowing a dentist, for dentistry, whether it be shadowing a dentist or trying to get involved in some volunteering. I would highly recommend that. Who wants to go to Cairns? I mean, for those of you, Den is Den, I guess, if that's your only option, unfortunately. And you'd have to.
Oh yeah, something else I might just add to that is, yeah, some sort of like volunteering experience. It can really help with the interview. This is something that like I was told and I've also heard, right? Because interviews, they often, like at least the MMIs, right? They often ask for, like personal anecdotes, like, oh, how do you deal with, like, tell me about a time where you showed leadership or something like that, right? And generally, having some sort of like volunteer experience, right? It can help with that. So yeah, thank you for reminding me to say that. Especially like definitely try look for some sort of volunteer opportunity. And even if it doesn't help to your interview, it is like nice to put on your resume if you want to get like a part time job as well. So yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it for content, like the stuff we have to talk about. We'll be sticking around a little bit afterwards to answer questions. I feel like I've definitely missed a couple of questions, so I'll try answer them as well. But yeah, thank you guys. You're welcome to leave now as well.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Uh, what stage should? Oh yeah, I'll just.
Yeah, some schools have work experience programs that involve you wanting to get some work experience, and then you connect the company or clinic of sorts with your school, and then they'll handle that stuff. For my experience, I did work experience for 2 weeks at a dental clinic, and I had to cold email 10 dental clinics, and then one of them allowed me to be at their clinic doing work experience for 2 weeks.
Just as an opportunity for anyone, if you want to get involved in like dental related volunteering in terms of handing out kits to underprivileged people or things like that, reach out to me. I'll see what I can do. It's still early in the year, but I do know some people, so I hope I am able to help. No guarantees, of course, but yeah.
Uh, we're having a little reunion in the chat. If someone did have questions and like I missed it or one of us have missed it, could you just like resend it, please? Because scrolling through the chat is a bit of a pain for us. General question: how did you guys balance work life and study life? Polaris, did you want to answer this question here, and then I'll jump in afterwards if there's something that I want to add.
Which one?
I just mentioned him to the question.
Oh, yeah. I see a question that you can answer as well, by the way, Johan. The one about Contour Med.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Someone ping me?
yeah. I pinged you for a question.
Do you want me to answer now, or are you guys discussing something else?
Yeah, you can
I can answer that.
I'll try to find the other question.
Balance work and study life. Did you guys have jobs / work much in grade 12 at all? I think that personally, I didn't have a job, but I wouldn't say that I didn't have time for it. I think I was just fortunate enough that it wasn't a requirement for me. And so I think there is always time for jobs. I certainly found myself that I did have free time, especially when I stopped tennis temporarily during year 12. I found that I had quite a bit of free time, especially when the busy periods slowed down a bit. You would, I reckon that maybe during the external periods, it's harder to get a job. I mean, to maintain a job as you're approaching externals. For me, it was just one of my tips is for me, maths and chemistry and all of those subjects was just volume. I just did a volume of questions. So it was just practice exams, making sure, of course, I'm learning from my mistakes, just so I'm getting a variety of questions. So for me, it was obviously just pattern recognition. Most of the questions actually I found in externals, I had seen some sort of form of them before, which is something that I think is good for others. So essentially, you should be able to have jobs. It does get very busy personally for me when you have high pressure external or IA periods. But I think that I did have quite a bit of free time. Maybe I would say like 1 to 2 hours a day. including not including external. External period was much more busy. IA period was much more busy, but there was always weeks where I had a 1 to 2 hours of free time. Considering I did not have social media, by the way, I didn't have any social media except Discord. So if you're getting hooked on Instagram Reels or social media, I'd recommend temporarily making sure that you're not getting distracted.
I'll quickly jump in. So I had a job throughout year 12. I still do, same job. I definitely think it is manageable. And the big thing, the big part that goes into that is like how you manage your time and plan your stuff. So like if you get your assignments done early, right, rather than like waiting till like 2 days before the due date, you'll realize that you actually have so much more free time because you're not like busy stressing over stuff, and you can like fit in time for other stuff, and you definitely do have time to work. I was in a casual job, right? I wasn't like part-time or full-time, so I did have the liberty of taking as much time off as I wanted because that's like the one of the rights as a casual person. So what would happen is like during like exam blocks, so internal exams or external exams, I would like take like a big chunk of time off. So for internals, I think I took like maybe a week before like exam block started, right? I would take that till the end of exam block. I would take that much time off. And that week before, that just gives me like a little bit of a safety in case there's stuff I haven't learned, because usually by that time I've learned all the content. So that week before is just like really revising. And for externals, I did like the whole of term 4, I did not work. Well, until after my externals, I didn't work. So definitely if your managers, like if you do get a job and your managers are okay with it, it is definitely possible to have a job in year 12 and still like have a good work-life balance. Yeah, the only thing is like sometimes your managers do get a little bit cross for like taking so much time off, but you got to do what you got to do. And I also had a question about Contour. So for my UCAT preparation, I did go with Contour education, and I personally I found it quite helpful. And I don't know if everyone will find it helpful. Like I think if you ask most of the server, they'll have very very mixed reviews of it. I found it helpful because I like delayed my UCAT preparation until like 2 or 3 months before my exam date. Like I didn't start like now. I think I started sometime April. And because of that, I was really crunched on time. And since like I started so late, it took me like a very, very long time to actually build like any sort of fundamentals. So what I did was I saw like Contour, they had like a free trial week. So how they hook you is they say, oh, we're gonna give you a free live mock, right? So I joined the live mock just to see how I'd go. And then the next step from that is like, oh, we're gonna give you like a full week in our system. And just based on that experience, I did join Contour because of it. And they helped me to like build like strong foundations. So for people who are really, really lost, right? Like they're seeing no sort of improvement at all. It's either because they don't have good foundations or they're just like mindlessly spamming questions. So like if you are like in that boat, I do think it is worth like at least looking into some sort of UCAT coaching or UCAT tutoring. It is expensive. I do get that. Contour, I don't know how much it is this year. When I did it last year, it was like $120 a week, which is not cheap, but you are getting like a lot of content, a lot of material for that money. And I didn't do the whole thing, obviously. I joined for like the very last. They have like 3, I don't know what it's called. like 3 blocks, and I joined for that very last block, so I didn't have to pay as much, and I still found it beneficial. So yeah, that's a bit of a side tangent on contour med prep. I hope that was helpful. Um, when should you start beginning for the UCAT? Like right now, like January. It's like the perfect time. Just don't like go too hard, otherwise you'll burn yourself out. Can you get a
Someone in
high
the
ATAR?
someone in the chat asked if you can get a high ATAR without any tutoring. And on
Absolutely.
that note, I'm not sure if I think Polaris might have had some tutoring. I don't think Johan did. Did you?
I had some.
Okay, yeah. Tutoring is very not essential because a lot of people that I know, including myself, of course, did not have tutoring, and
Yeah.
we all did well. You also
Hmm.
asked if it's based off being a genius. I don't think genius, like in the sense of ATAR, being a genius doesn't really matter. It might help, of course, but you can get very high scores without being particularly smart.
Yeah.
The main thing is
Yeah,
just doing, yeah.
I mean, like some said, I mean, you do not have to be a genius. I'd classify myself as nowhere a genius, but I did have tutoring. The tutoring for me, it was mainly just like I said, it was just grinding questions. So for maths and science, more than for maths specifically, it was pretty much just grinding questions rather than content. So if you're able to find a variety of questions or find someone that can source you a variety of questions and you have the discipline to do it in your own time, you don't need tutoring. I mean, especially with AI becoming more reliable. I mean, I joined QSH late. So the fact that you have QSH, you can feel free to just pop in the question in QSH. People will reply to you. So I wouldn't say tutoring is necessary. I mean, physics and chem, I'd say near not necessary, unless it's for assignments. Assignment review can be very useful, especially since the new syllabus is more strict. So that's the only thing that I would say you 100% need to do. Otherwise, tutoring is more of a luxury than a need to get a 99 plus ATAR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, on that note, in the chat, I just posted some advice that I gave to Dr. Faye earlier, like 2 weeks ago. And yeah, that advice I stand by very well because it's very important to look at it in that lens. Yeah, just read what I sent.
And also just to like finish off like the little thing about tutoring, it's definitely not. It's not required to get a high ATAR by any means. I think it depends on the person. Like if you don't have really good study skills, having a tutor or some sort of person to actually keep you accountable, like not even like forget like the whole like teaching content aspect of it. Just having someone to keep you accountable that can help as well, and that is one of the roles of a tutor. And of course, like if you do have really trash teachers, which is unfortunately the case, and if you, for example, if you don't have access to good resources to like study on your own, then you might also consider tutoring for that. I think, like, especially if you're trying to do something like I did, that like trying to learn as much of the content as you can before Great Tail starts, right? Like during these holidays. For that, like having a tutor, I think for that it's not a bad idea. It's not required again, but tutors, they do have that structure to teach you stuff. It's definitely not required throughout the year. That's what I'm trying to say. But at certain times, it can be helpful, and it definitely depends on the person. If you're someone with weak study skills, it can help as well. Uh, Overwhelmed by all the resources. Oh, this is good. Did you guys want to answer this question?
Which one?
I'll
Oh, Irene's
you
one.
guys. Yeah.
Um, Do you want to answer it, Polaris?
I mean, I don't mind. You can go, and then I'll add anything if I feel.
I
So.
Okay. You asked about what resources, and yeah, I think useful resources channels. There's different server channels in the server, and subject channels on the server, and for all your subjects there's also useful resources, and those are just insanely valuable. There's a lot of exams as well. I think from some private schools like Brisbane Grammar School for some math subjects as well. But yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think your school should have some resources, hopefully some past assignments. Then also Ash mentioned earlier about Sudoku. So if you search up like physics IA2 student experiment, you can find online on a website called Sudoku. It should pop up when you Google it. I'll just type it
ATAR notes as well.
Oh yeah, ATAR Notes also has some past examples of assignments.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would add is just you shouldn't need to feel too overwhelmed as long as you're following the syllabus. Make sure that you're just getting the resources and applying
Yeah.
them to the syllabus. So as long as you're systematically going through the syllabus and making sure you're checking with it, that should kind of be your baseline. So you're making sure you're not veering off with the amount of resources that you have. And that should help.
Yeah. And I'll just jump in as well. Yeah, I definitely think it's a lot more beneficial to follow the syllabus rather than following a textbook. Like I think it was Cambridge. We did Cambridge, right? The Cambridge Methods textbook. I noticed personally had some really, really random like stuff that's not related to like anything at all, right? So if you use the syllabus as a guide rather than using your textbook as a guide, you'll realize and understand what you actually need to learn and what you really don't need to learn as much. With the syllabus, there's like the key words that you notice, like appreciate this, and this. If it says appreciate, you probably don't need to like study that much into it because it won't be
Yeah,
like assessed on the external exam, stuff like that. That's actually something we missed in this masterclass. We didn't really go through any of the like
syllabus top points. Yeah,
yeah, any of the
yeah, that's fine.
words. But yeah, definitely use the syllabus instead of like following textbooks because textbooks, for the sake of cohesion, moving like smoothly from one topic to another, they add like random stuff that is not in the syllabus at all. So yeah.
So yeah, someone
Sorry, what
suggested.
was I
You
missed
go.
what you said, Johan.
Oh, I was just talking about how like textbooks, for the sake of cohesion,
Oh,
they
yes,
add
yes,
random
that is
stuff.
true. Mm.
Yeah, someone mentioned a syllabus masterclass, and that's something we could do sometime later.
Yeah,
Not
that's
today, of
In
course.
yeah,
fact, I earlier this year actually, when externals finished, I did create highlighted syllabuses highlighting the new 2025 and 2020 2019 syllabus differences. So if you'd like that, I can also integrate that into the next masterclass. It covers the key differences um, and gives examples for a lot of topics for chem and physics.
X. Yeah, there's a bunch of people going to year 12 in this chat right now. 26 graduates.
And one other thing in terms of chemistry, I pretty much for chemistry and physics, I genuinely feel like you can easily learn it by yourself. I mean, I stopped showing up to school because my teacher was kind of like useless. So I stopped showing up to school and instead started just studying at home. The amount of YouTube videos and everything available was extremely abundant. Like
yeah,
genuinely, like I just sacrificed my my what do you call it? my attendance just to study at home because there was honestly no point.
Just to jump in, I agree with that, especially for the science subjects, because you don't really have like exams as such, other than the data test, right? You don't have exams as such for your internal assessments, so there's not as much control that like teachers have, compared to like math, right? I'm not sure how it works in other schools. In my school, at least, like the internal assessments, the exams, right? They were very, very dependent on what like the teachers actually taught us. So for stuff like that, I think it is important to actually come to class. So you do get some sort of like hints from your teacher. Be like, oh, maybe don't worry too much about this, right? Especially if it is like my school and it is like very, very teacher based. So yeah, for sciences, I agree. It's very easy to study on your own. For like math, I think it is important to again have that teacher relationship and make sure you're using the input of the teacher as well. Yeah, like Lloyd said, teachers can make quite big mistakes like that. It happened as well. I'm not sure if it was this year or last year for me, but 2 questions that my methods teacher put up like the day or 2 before the exam, they were pretty much, other than like using different numbers, they were pretty much the exact same technique and concept on the actual exam for the complex unfamiliars. So yeah.
Oh, I did want to say something. Like, this is from what I've been told, right? School can make a minor difference, especially in terms of the internal exams. I know our schools were relatively easy compared to others. I have heard that if you go to Brisbane Grammar, what they do essentially, I'm just gonna be honest. I've seen documents from Brisbane Grammar. Essentially, what they do is they give you a document. So this is for internal exams. So for example, spec and methods. For the IA exams, they'll give you a document and it'll say it's a practice exam document. It'll say question 1, A, B, C, D, E. Question 2, A, B, C, D, E. Question 3, A, B, C, D, E, and it'll essentially be a mock. And each question 1 has 4 variants, A, B, C, D, E. And essentially, the students know that in the internal exam, A, B, C, D, or E will be in the exam in similar wording or just change numbers. So essentially, if they know how to do A, B, C, D, E for question 1, 2, 3, and so on, they've got it. So what you want to do, because you're having to compete with that, and that's a reality. So what you want to do is you want to make sure not only you're establishing connection with your teachers, but something that I did is often I would go up to my teacher. So for example, Simpson's rule and specialist, I think you guys might learn it. I would be to my teacher, how hard can this get? Like, and you just got to try and figure out things about it. Like, how hard can Simpson's rule get, or the simple harmonic motion get even hard? And then they might be like, oh no, it doesn't really get hard, or it does get hard, and that kind of gives you a hint on what's going to be in the internals, because they're also trying to help you as well. So if you be nice to them, sometimes they indirectly give you hints.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've missed so many questions because I yap so
Yeah.
hard on each question.
If anyone has any more questions, feel free to comment them below, and then we'll answer a few more, and then we'd probably wrap it up sometime soon.
Anyways, I'll have to go. I hope for me, at least I'll leave with Johan, and some can continue if they need to. I hope this was a useful masterclass. If anyone has any questions like specific to me, feel free to DM me, or in QSH ping me. I'll be happy to help. Anyway,
Yeah.
see you guys. See you, Johan and Sam.
See ya.
Yes, yeah, man. Then, if anyone wants tutoring from us, you can reach out. We offer tutoring. But besides that, we will be helping, lurking around in the server, answering questions.